be dancing in the streets, dancing at his feet, dancing in the streets of gold. We'll be dancing in the streets, dancing at his feet, dancing in the New Jerusalem. And we will sing Kadosh, Kadosh to the Lord of hosts, joining in the angels' choir, and forever we will be.
Well, welcome to the next chapter. I am Sandi Craig, your 5th day of the week host for this time slot, and we are so glad that you've joined us here on the Messianic Lamb Network. There is so much going on, and you always want to stay tuned, stay informed, because hey, times are flying, that's for sure. Well, who am I? My husband and I co-pastor a church right here in Amarillo, Texas, called Life of Worship. And we would, if you're ever in the area, we would love to have you. And let's see, our services are live on YouTube. And about 6 o'clock, 6 p.m. We also have Pal Talk and things for our tour portions at 2 p.m. Central. And we have something coming up. We have Bishop Salamat Kokar will be in Amarillo at Life of Worship this Erev Shabbat, this Friday at 6:30 p.m. Central. So, hey, join us. Also, there's a few other things my husband and I do. We have Monday morning War Room Prayers. We have Monday morning Let Us Reason Together this time slot, and he hosts that, as well as Tuesday evening, 8 p.m. Central. We have Walking in Spirit and Truth. So you want to check out each and every show because they're all different. So, and anyway, it's good. And there are many other shows right here on the Messianic Lamb Network that you want to check out. Well, what is today? Well, this is the day that we're going to talk about the great hack. Yeah, the great hack. You want to stay tuned. You don't want to miss a second of that, because we're going to save that for a little ways down the show, and you want to be informed. Trust me. This is our 19th show for the next chapter, and this is November 21st, 2019. Can you believe it? November 21st. Anyway, what is happening? Let's see what's happening. And you can go to messianiclambradio.com to look at it with your own eyes. But our live shows are simultaneously broadcast 3 ways. Right here on the website at messianiclambradio.com, as well as YouTube and the Lamb Facebook page. So any way you can get this show, and all our live shows. So there's also some more information. The latest video from His Great Name, True Thanksgiving Comes from the Heart. Yeah, and that's by Sherry Flannigan. Also, the latest show segment, Data Engineering, with John Craig, Sandi Craig, Mark David Smith, from the original show, Let Us Reason Together. Also, Prophetic Tacos by Alan Aguirre with Jermaine Yoder and Angelo Gonzalez, from the Chameleon Church Show. And the newest Four Corners News reports, Ben Carson, Political Correctness is going to destroy our nation. And that's by Sherry Flannigan. As well as Humble Yourselves Before the Lord, Nationals and Win World Series Star Player Fuels by Faith in God by Sherry Flannigan. Hey, there's a Journey Through the Torah latest video series submission for Genesis, Chaye Sarah, and His Word Heals latest video now is ready to watch. 'Tis the season, flu season, to vaccinate or not to vaccinate. Truths from the CDC and manufacturers. Be sure to check out our Meet the Show host page, as well as our show information page. Yeah, that's a lot going on, and there's much more. We didn't even mention we just mentioned a fraction. But we also want you to know this is an interactive show. Join us in the chat rooms if you can, Facebook, YouTube. And if you don't want to, and you want to just sit back on the Messianic Lamb Radio page, do that. That's okay. But we would love to see what you have to say and get you involved as well. So anyway, if you are listening on YouTube or Facebook, please like the show and subscribe if you can. We would love that. Share it as well. Share it. Get up in front of everybody and tell them, hey, you need to know about this, because people do. Anyway, I'm not on this show alone. I have I have other people with me. Hallelujah. And the first one I want to introduce is Miss Joe Cameron, G.I. Joe, the Hebrew from Toledo, Ohio. And she hosts Sunday through and Thursday War Room Prayers. She's a mighty woman of Yah, and you'll see her in more places than that, because not only is she here, but you'll see her pop up everywhere. Welcome, Joe.
I pop up everywhere.
And I hear that there's a leaf blower at your house.
Yeah, there's a leaf blower right there. He keeps passing my window and looking at me and kind of shrugging like, I'm doing my job. I get paid for this. Please let me do my job.
Well,
and it's like, go away.
When I first heard it, I thought somebody was going either blowing a didgeridoo or somebody's going, I wasn't sure which. But I was
no coming in my house.
And I initially thought it was Mark because it sort of popped in when Mark came. So anyway, but it was. Is it silent now? Is he done?
No, he's a little bit farther from the window, but I can see him. He's blowing and he keeps turning and looking at me and like I'm doing, he's got to get these leaves to the road, because here in Toledo, they suck up the leaves. You put them against like near the curb and this leaf sucker thing comes and sucks up the leaves.
Well, in Texas, the leaves we do have, you're just responsible to figure it out. So
y'all don't have as many leaves as we do.
That's true. That is true.
I mean, there's a to where Mariah would get lost.
Okay. I have to tell this quick story. My mom, we visited my mom's house last Friday, and she has this fruitless mulberry tree that drops leaves, and they were all over the yard, and the wind had blown them in a big pile, most of them, but there were some still strewn everywhere. And she starts off, and she's not 2 yet. She's lacking 3 months before she's 2. So she is walking on the leaves. She likes the crunch sound. And I led her to the pile, and she was unsure when she got to the pile because it was above her knees and above her thighs. And then I just sort of plopped in there and let her see it's fun. And so then she did that for a while, but she still preferred the leaves that were ankle to calf deep. So anyway, that's my story. I'm sticking to it, but we're not alone. There's more people here besides you and me. So let's introduce them. Let's introduce our leader, Mark David Smith, owner of the Messianic Lamb Network, the one whose vision is cast everywhere you see, and one who's bringing us the main segment today. Welcome, Mr. Mark David Smith. Well, he's there somewhere. Well, where we're waiting for him, I'm going to also introduce John Craig. He is helping fill in for Sherry Flannigan today, and he always has a lot of opinions. Well, I think you know that, but when you say he's a very opinionated person.
He's very opinionated, but also he does his research.
So, well, he is here beside me. So welcome, Mr. John Craig.
Well, I'm glad to be here this morning. And yes, I have lots of opinions, but I try to base those off of something, not just to be out there in the wind. So
that's what Joe just said.
Yes. So she's right. She's dead on.
So
thank you, Joe, for making that point for me.
Do we have Mark in the picture yet?
Am I here?
Yeah, we introduced you.
There he is.
Well, I keep losing internet big time. It's going in and out, in and out, in and out.
Well, we'll figure it out along the way.
I know. Oh, I know what the deal is. Remember, we are on Facebook, and Facebook found out that you used the word "the great hack." And we know, if you know anything about this documentary, I'm just saying, I'm just saying, it's I want to ask John Craig there. Hello, Mr. John Craig.
Hey, Mark David Smith.
What do you think? You think that's possible that because I'm doing this little spiel on the great hack, which is all about some of Facebook's discrepancies. As a matter of fact, I'm just kind of reading over some of this stuff here. You think it's a possibility they're cutting my internet off?
Well, I
Anything's possible.
Sorry.
Oh, I have a question, a quick, easy question for you guys today, and I did not give it to you in your notes, but I think you can handle it. What is your favorite ice cream? Let's start with you, Mark, since you were last in.
I like Neapolitan because I like all three. If I were to buy, just generically, I would probably buy, Neapolitan. But I like Rocky Road, or I like some of those that have different things. And if you go to like a ice cream store where they have a whole display of stuff, it's just what I'm in the mood for right then and there. Does that answer your question?
That works. That answers. John Craig.
I would say
I do know the truth. So
do you? Okay. I have some that I like to get and I prefer, and there's some that I prefer not to get.
Okay, tell us what you like to get.
The one that always seems to be the one I get is butter pecan.
But what do you always choose if you can?
But if I can get it, pralines and cream.
No, he always gets coffee ice cream.
Yeah, I like that, but it's not my favorite. It just offsets the other side.
Oh,
there you go.
See, like, you get 2 scoops, I get a butter pecan and a coffee.
And that's what we used to do on dates. We don't do it very often now because ice cream doesn't like us as much as it used to.
But if I can get,
really?
If I can get pralines and cream, I'll choose
coffee.
That. I'll choose.
Kids, we always get double dips. Yeah. I'll just tell you mine since I'm out of order. But I always get the same thing. I'm sort of plain and boring, and I have to have it in this order on our date. I have to have on the bottom, I want strawberry, and on the top, my second scoop, I want chocolate almond. And I always get exactly the same thing.
In that order.
In that order. It has to be just like that.
Joe. I don't doubt it. I really don't doubt it. It has to be in that order, and it's every time, and she's not going to do anything else. Do you ever like just try something else?
Yes, I used to have a lot of others, but I just like that. So
yeah.
When I was growing up, I always had butter pecan. When I was growing up.
My mother's favorite was butter pecan, and I can remember the last couple of times that we got some ice cream at an ice cream place, and they had butter pecan. It's like, oh man, I've been thinking about my mom lately, and there's her favorite ice cream, so put some butter pecan in there.
There you go.
Yeah, it's just you're in the mood.
It is true. Joe.
Mint chocolate chip is my favorite, but John, you're like my husband. He likes that stuff. And butter pecan, I grew up on that. It was like every Sunday, my dad had to have butter pecan with our dinner. So I am so sick of butter pecan. But mint chocolate chip, I just love that minty flavor, and then that little bit of chocolate in there. It's yummy. And, my second favorite, I would say, it's not really ice cream. It's a rainbow sherbet.
Wow. Yeah. That's not ice cream. That's sherbet.
I know. I said it wasn't ice cream.
I'm sorry. I was listening. The sound is now gone from a weed cutter to it sounds like a boat, because every once in a while you kind of hear it come up off the water and down on the water, and you hear the motor in the back, it's so.
Yeah, he's now just about 6 feet away.
Sorry,
6 feet away. Well, I have another question for you guys. This is our question of the day, and I'll stick it in the chat. The average person starts doing this at the age of 41.
Taking naps.
The average person starts
41.
doing this at the age of 41. What's your guess?
41. My answer to that is not cutting their hair anymore.
Okay. By the way, Desiree loves peanut butter and chocolate frozen yogurt and cherry cordial. Yeah. Anyway, and Tova likes butter pecan. But
There
she
we
said
go.
her favorite really depends on where she's going to get it from.
Yeah.
So if it's at the store, Bluebell Dutch chocolate. Ooh, Tova, I haven't tried that. That sounds yummy. Anyway, so what's your guess, John?
At age 41.
Desiree says eating less. We need to eat less at the age of 41. Our
I say
metabolism
eating more.
changes.
Two. Another one's comfy clothes.
I would say they stop exercising.
Stop exercising.
No, you asked what do they do, not what they're supposed to do. So
That's an action.
we're all answering
Well-
what do we do. So
Tova said taking vitamins. And I'm just going to go ahead and give the answer right now because Tova's right. It's taking vitamins.
Oh, she's
All right.
always right. She's
Yeah, I was
always
gonna say
right.
Tova is correct. Now we're gonna jump into news attack and just take 1 or 2 minutes, just a couple minutes to go over this. Since we're talking about coffee, or I brought up coffee for John. Coffee could become a luxury item very, very soon because of what they're calling climate change. Coffee could be in the not too distant future. You might not have it so available to you all the time. So if you're concerned about the climate, well, maybe you won't get coffee. Anyway, experts think that in 30 years, by 2050, up to half the land currently used globally to grow coffee could become unusable for that purpose. They say the quality of the coffee could be diminished as farmers turn to new varieties and they lower production volumes, and it's going to cause prices to go way up. Tova says she's going to buy stock in coffee. Do you have any opinion on that? Does that make you sad?
You know, I used to drink at least 1 cup of coffee a day, and it's rare that I have a cup of coffee. So I think I had a cup of coffee for the first time in probably 6 months last weekend. So I don't.
No, so it's not going to affect you.
It's not going to affect me as much, but I like a good cup of coffee every once in a while.
Well, I have another piece
Makes me sad just to think that would be true.
I was going to say there is something that tastes like coffee. And in fact, my parents drink it now every morning instead of coffee. And it's called Dandy Blend. And it's made with, what is that?
Dandelions.
The weed, dandelion.
Dandelions.
And dandelions are so good for you.
Yeah,
So they drink that, and they even got their Torah group to start drinking it.
Have they noticed a difference in the way they feel or anything?
Oh yeah, my parents. In fact, my mom and dad have lost a lot of weight. They're more energetic. My dad walks. He used to walk like a mile every morning. Now he's walking 2 miles a morning. And
wow,
great afterwards. And then he has his apple a day, which you know the saying, an apple a day keeps the doctor away. So he eats an apple a day and has his Dandy Blend and reads the scriptures, and that's how he starts his day. Goes for a walk, prays while he's walking, and so that's another healthy thing.
That is. Well, Tova reminds us that coffee isn't really for drinking. Remember, we did that segment about coffee enemas and things, and how
it's for enemas.
It's for other things.
Ooh.
So hey, remember that. I have one more little bit of info before we go start getting into some other stuff. Here's the news piece, guys. Guys gossip more than women. Dun, dun, dun. Guys who gossip outnumber gossiping girls 2-1, according to research. 80% of guys' conversation are spent discussing other people and their habits. The difference between what guys and women gossip about, the study found that guys love exchanging juicy tidbits of personal info. Only about 5% of their gossip is malicious. Okay.
Well, let me just clarify something here, if I could, please. People like John and I, and the integrity wise men that we know, we don't gossip at all. So there's a balance there. So to say that men do it more than women, there's so many of us men that choose not to do it that it offsets that balance. By the way, Sandy, are you trying to promote the great hack today? Because you keep hacking. And I was wondering if
I apologize. Amariah, I'm dealing with some things. Miss Little Amariah has been dealing with things, and she's been kissing all over me. So
isn't that right, though? John, is that we choose not to gossip, and so that helps to balance that out for the
That's
man.
right. And a good way to prevent lots of gossip is you get in the car and you drive and you don't use your phone and you're all alone and there's no one to talk to about it.
Honey, I'm going to say this. Will you catch up on all your words from driving anytime you're with someone?
That's Dave. He drives for a living. And then when he comes home, it's like a buzzsaw.
But he doesn't catch those words up with me. It's whomever, well, you know it. You've seen him now, Joe. You know. Anyway.
Look at the campfire. Oh, I better go.
Well, I wanted us to jump to a segment that we haven't had before. It's an inspirational moment. And I want us to talk about the future and the past. And I spoke a little bit about this on my message on Shabbat. So if you want more information, you're going to have to go to that, and I'll put the link in there for you. But future and past, we think of it so Greek in our world because we think the future is in front of us and the past is behind us. But in Hebrew thought, that's just not the case. It's not the case. And, we live in a society that it's going to get better. It's, the best is yet to come, et cetera, et cetera. And that's really doesn't make a lot of sense because if we look at the world, it's sort of going in this downward spiral moment. And you hear the minute you're born, you begin to, your body begins to degrade the minute you're born. You hear that. I'm just leaving it at that. But, we need to be like kids. I think about my granddaughter. She has no concern about her future. She's not worried about tomorrow, and worry is a big deal. I don't know if it is for both. I know that that's something I deal with. I have to really, because worry's fear, and you can't do that. That's fear. Yah did not give you a spirit of fear, but of power and love and of a sound mind. But if we would understand the Hebrew concept that our future is behind us. So what do you mean? Well, in Greek thought, it's we're looking in front, we're always facing the other direction. But I've told you guys before, in a Hebrew thought, it's like you're in a boat. You're in a rowboat, one of those rowboats where you see multiple people rowing together, and there's somebody that's facing the opposite direction that's calling out where to go. Now you're going in the other direction, the direction opposite what you're facing. And that's really sort of what it is in Hebrew thought. The future is that's behind us. And what do you mean by that? Well, when we're looking at all the great things he's done for us, because that's all we know. If we are living in the testimonies and the miracles that he's done for us and other people, that's a sure sign of how he's going to take care of you in the future. And you need not worry. You need not fret. When we start to look at our past and we look at the miracles God's done, how could we but trust in a great God that's before us? Now, when we listen to the news, when we look around us, when we see what's happening around our kids, it's easy to say, oh, where are we? What are we supposed to do? What's supposed to happen? How are we going to take care of ourselves? But our Yah says, when we trust in him, when we're following his word and his ways, when we are so intimate with him that we hear his voice, that he's going to take care of us. I want us to look at, well, I'm not going to look, but here's something from Jeff Brenner. That's the difference between the future and the past. In biblical Hebrew, the word for yesterday is tamul, and it comes from the root mul, which means in front. Okay, think about that now, in front. And the biblical Hebrew word for tomorrow is macher, and it means back. Okay, so from a biblical Hebrew perspective, the past is in front of you, and the future is behind you. So as we have walked through the past, we see it behind us, and the future, which we have not yet seen, is in front of us. So here again, even in the Hebrew words for tomorrow and yesterday, it gives us that picture of that rowboat rowing behind. So we need to stop worrying about tomorrow, worrying about how is he going to what's he going to do? How's he going to do it? We need to trust in him because he's got us, and he's got us. If we're drawing close, if we're seeking him out. Now, if we're doing our own life, our own way, and we're sitting on the throne of our own hearts, well, then he's going to let us drive. But that's one thing we need to do too. Excuse me. Is get off the throne of our lives and stop saying, hey, you can sit on the throne of my life and say, oh, but not my finances. Oh, but not this part. Oh, but not that part. Because that's what we do, folks. Let's be real. That's what we do. Instead, we let him be Yah of every part of our life. And we trust in him. We trust in what he's doing in our lives. And we hold on with that testimony of Yeshua, of the things he's done. And we can face what we've got to face with a surety, just like our grandchildren or our children, and rest in him. And isn't that be still and know that he is Yah, because he is, no matter what we're facing. No matter what we're facing. So when trial or tribulation comes up, guess what you can do? You can laugh at it because it's just an opportunity. It's an opportunity for Yah to show himself glorious. It's an opportunity for him to show and prove himself. Now, remember, male means in Hebrew zakar, which is to remember. Remember, guys, remember, cast your cares upon him and trust in him in all that you're doing, because he has got you. So what is the future and the past? Let's stop thinking Greek. Let's stop thinking the way that the world thinks, and let's think the way Yah thinks, and trust in everything that he's doing. I just put a link into that message in the chat, so you are welcome to go watch that. And if you do go to that, subscribe to our Life of Worship YouTube channel, like it, share it. Anyway, we would love to have you a part. So that is our inspirational short moment for the day. Any comment?
Well, I do. It's very interesting because scripturally speaking, that we know the end from the beginning. And it says that if I got this right, 7 times in the book of Isaiah. And we look at the book of Isaiah so many times as being very prophetic, as looking into the future. But if you really want to understand the future, is you understand the past. And so, I mean, I was just thinking about how many things are cyclical in life, and especially, like, for example, let's go back to the early 1900s during the Bolshevik Revolution in Russia, and there were certain things that took place leading up to the communist takeover. It was a process, and it took them a good 20 to 30 years of dialogue and philosophy, and getting the people through an education system to get on the same page, to where they could get, I think it was only 3 to 5% of the population that agreed with the Bolsheviks, which ended up in ousting the czars and taking over, and where the communism began to reign for the next, 80 years or so. And so when we look at that, we can look at, well, what were the steps in the process, and what's going on right now in America? And where there's such rhetoric, I mean, almost to the point of, if you don't agree with us with our socialist, communist, Marxist agenda, then you don't deserve to live. And that was the rhetoric that it's now, that went right up to the revolution there in Russia during a time of World War I was going on, and just great upheaval, and certain people were able to take power, and then they started slaughtering anybody that didn't agree with them, and millions of believers, Jews, all over the country of what became the Soviet Union were just slaughtered. And we can see that if this cycle continues, we'll see that in America, because we're looking to the past to know our future.
Well, but I want us to realize too, we walk in that encouragement of what Yah's done for us.
And I'm just saying that is, I'm just saying that is in terms
because
of,
things are cyclical.
Here's an action. Yeah. So, of where it's actually happened in our past. This is historical.
Well, and you see that now. The rhetoric is now, if you're conservative or anything like that, you don't deserve to live.
Mm-hmm.
So, Joe, did you have anything you wanted to comment on?
If I walk backwards, I will trip and fall. And cyclical would make me dizzy. You know, I have worked with you, and you're crazy, dude. No, I like what you had to say. I like what you had to say. Yeah, we need to look at our past. Our past is what has caused us to grow. Don't dwell on it, but look at our past. And the
Not
reason
mistakes.
the reason I brought the puppet out is because so many people become so serious and so stone-faced that they forget that we have to have joy, because it says in the scripture, joy is of the Lord is our strength. And we need to remember that. And that's why we are to look at our kids. Look at our kids and how they have no care in the world. They have such trust. This is how we're supposed to be. I think this is why the Father gave us children and grandchildren, to remind us of these things.
I agree. Mark?
To relieve your great hack, try chloroseptic. It will help all of it and stop your great hack.
Well, I may slip out and go get a cough drop or something. So anyway,
chloroseptic's always what we use. My response, there was several things that came to mind, but there's something that I have taught a lot for years and years and years and years is when I'm thinking of faith. And you've heard definitions of faith by multiple people that come up with their own concept of that. And my concept of faith is that if you don't remember all the things that God has done for you in the past, when you need God to help you in the future, you won't have the faith to trust him to help you in the future. And I think that is the number one reason why people don't get their prayers answered, or, I mean, there's a billion different reasons for that. But the number one thing is that God has done massive amount of things, miracles beyond understanding that he has done for each individual one of us. And yet when it comes time to trust that he's going to be there for us again in the future, then we don't trust him, or we say we trust him, but we still go a whole different way to get that issue solved. And so I think that plays right along with what you're saying is that without the past, your future is completely different. And so maybe that works the same way. I'm not so sure that's what comes to my mind.
Well, it's like your past is like you're a seed. Are you going to be a seed for the rest of your life, or are you going to start growing? And you got to go through the routine. And everything that happened in your past, like you said, is to bring forth who you become. And, I use the puppet and saying walking backwards. Yeah, let's say we're walking backwards, but we walk backwards and we're looking at our past and the future's behind us, but we're also using that as trust, because we know that he's going to tell us if we need to turn to the left or the right. It's like at night when it's real dark, I still deal with when it's dark to have someone help me. And they have to tell me, hey, be careful, there's a step, or hey, there's this and that. That's trust in a person. If a blind man can trust a person, why can't we trust the creator of all things?
By the way, Joe, I could see your lips moving when you were doing your puppet thing a while ago.
Yeah, I'm not a ventriloquist.
Oh, you're not a ventriloquist?
No.
You're a puppet master, and they move their mouth?
They move their mouths.
They do. Okay. Well, next time, move your webcam over a little bit, so we only see the puppet. See, and then we'll believe that the puppet's actually talking.
You mean like this?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That works for me.
Hey, to wrap that up, everybody, just
Wrap it up.
take hold of what he's done now. And when we're talking about look into your past, rowing that boat, you're moving this way, but you're facing the other way. I'm not talking about dwelling on the mistakes, dwelling on the hardship, not talking about that. I'm talking about dwelling on the King and his victories in your life. And if you say, hey, I don't have any, then use somebody else's, but pray. God, if we're living and breathing, that's something right there. If we have a roof over our head and our bills are paid, that's something. And there's so much. So that's our inspirational moment for today. And we are coming up on our main segment, The Great Hack. It's coming your way.
Amen. Everybody now. Amen. The Great Hack. Well, The Great Hack is actually the name of a documentary on Netflix that my wife and I watched a few weeks back, and it's interesting because we when we eat lunch together, we always try to find something on Netflix or Hulu or something, this documentary, so we can watch those things and be informed about stuff going on. Quite honestly, the story of The Great Hack is one that I had heard of very discreetly and didn't know hardly any of the details about it. But once we watched this 2-hour documentary on Netflix, we were, it's one of those things we're always wanting to be informed. It didn't surprise us, but it is something that I believe everybody should know. So I passed that on to Sandy, Joe, and Sherry and said, let's talk about this, because it goes along. The reason is because it goes along with, I should parenthetically title a lot of my little spiels as privacy and security versus public and insecurity. And I've been thinking about that for a long time, because I've done little documentaries on this, and it follows right along with our HR 5, the Equality Act, and all of that's going on. It follows into that because it's all about our privacy and our security within the days and lives that we live. If you look back 20 years, 40 years, if you look through history, 60, 100 years ago, these privacy and security really weren't issues except for very rich people or people in power. The average Joe, like I am, and I'm not saying you, but if I'd say me or you, the average Joes, it really didn't. 100 years ago, and in the past from that, we didn't really deal with that. But today, the greater majority of people, let's just use United States, European areas, the bigger, more wealthy countries and continents, are on the internet. They're on their phone, which is part of the internet, the whole thing. And it is very, very, very vital that we understand where we stand with this. So privacy and security versus public and insecurity, I think, is probably should be, besides getting yourself saved and ready for the end times, probably the next number one issue. Now, it's interesting because we all know the definitions of privacy, security, public, and insecurity, but insecurity, I think, may be one of the lesser understandings that we have in there. So I looked them all up, but I seemed very different to me in the definition of insecurity and the antonyms, the opposite of insecurity would be break, disagreement, those type of things. So anyway, let's talk about the documentary, and I highly suggest that you look this up if you have Netflix or have another way of watching it. It's my recommendation to watch The Great Hack, and it's a 2019 documentary film about Facebook/Cambridge Analytica data scandal. Now, most of what I'm going to read here, because I really know what the movie's about, but I wanted to get details, so I'm using most of what I'm saying to you from an article called The Great Hack in Wikipedia. Also, the Facebook Cambridge Analytica data scandal. So you can look those up also in Wikipedia. But I'm going to give you a general rundown based on what they say, because I've read it several times now, and it's dead on. So I couldn't put together a better outline than what they had. So let me give you a little bit of background to especially Cambridge Analytica. I'm going to give you a little spiel here on what actually happened and who they are, how it started, that type of thing, because that is probably your key, most important understanding in all this. In 2015, Cambridge Analytica, a UK-based political consulting firm, began working on behalf of Ted Cruz's campaign for this last election, for his presidential campaign, the Republican nomination. Cambridge Analytica used Facebook as a means for political voter surveillance through the collection of user data points. After Cruz dropped out of the race, Cambridge Analytica used the same strategies for Donald Trump's presidential bid. Independent investigations into what they called data mining led to a scandal over the influence of social media in political elections. In this documentary film, The Great Hack, the Cambridge Analytica scandal is examined through the eyes of several involved persons. So what you have in the documentary, you're going to see it actually put together as one of the main people is the person, the whistleblower that made it all public, plus another lady that was involved with the whole thing. And it's very interesting to see from the inside out of what happened through this documentary. Cambridge Analytica, the firm responsible for the scandal, was dedicated to big data. The data which was collected was meant to be used in sales strategy. That was their original idea of what they wanted to do with this company. It's interesting. Matter of fact, let me just jump down to Alexander Kogan, a data scientist at Cambridge University, developed an app called This Is Your Digital Life. This Is Your Digital Life. He provided the app to Cambridge Analytica, and they in turn arranged an informed consent process for research in which several 100,000 Facebook users would agree to complete a survey only for academic use. However, Facebook's design allowed this app not only to collect the personal information of people who agreed to take the survey, but also the personal information of all the people in those users' Facebook social network. In this way, Cambridge Analytica acquired data from millions of Facebook users. Now, even if it seemed to be the objective of the firm, Cambridge Analytica, the data ended up being used to create a huge thinking machine, which reached the point of literally destabilizing countries and disrupt all different societies, and it affected what they did affected from the top of many different presidents and people in charge of countries, all the way down to the person that just barely makes it every day and is on the internet. It affected literally the planet, and in everything that they were doing. Everything else that had to do with interesting. I'm getting a call from Durham, England, United Kingdom. How about that? During this, I'm getting a call from them. So I have no idea. This has been a crazy day. Anyway, let me get on here a little bit more here. For Cambridge Analytica had harvested the personal data of millions of people's Facebook profiles without their consent and used it for political advertising purposes. It had been described as a watershed moment in the public understanding of personal data and precipitated a massive fall in Facebook stock prices and calls for tighter regulation of tech companies' use of personal data. The illicit harvesting of personal data by Cambridge Analytica was first reported in December 2015 by Harry Davies, a journalist for The Guardian. He reported that Cambridge Analytica was working for United States Senator Ted Cruz using data harvested from millions of people's Facebook accounts without their consent. Facebook refused to comment on the story other than to say it was investigating. More than $100 billion was knocked off. More than $100 billion was knocked off Facebook's market capitalization in days. After this was made public, they literally lost $100 billion in their marketing capitalization. And politicians in the US and UK demanded answers from Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg. The scandal eventually led to him agreeing to testify in front of the United States Congress. In this documentary, The Great Hack, you will see part of that interview, or that him testifying. Finally, The Observer and the New York Times reported that data set has included information on 50 million Facebook users, while Cambridge Analytica claimed it had only collected 30 million Facebook user profiles. Facebook later confirmed that it had actually had data on up to 87 million users. Only 87 million users, with 70.6 million of those people from the United States. 70.6 million of those people that they stole data from out of 87 million were from the United States. Within the United States, Facebook estimated that California was the most, so on and so forth. Facebook sent a message to those users believed to be affected, saying the information likely included one's public profile, page likes, birthday, and current city. Some of the app's users gave the app permission to access their newsfeed, timeline, and messages. The data was detailed enough for Cambridge Analytica to create psychographic profiles. I think it's all psychographic, of the subjects of the data. The data also included the locations of each person for a given political campaign. The data was detailed enough to provide, to create a profile which suggested what kind of advertisement would be most effective to persuade a person in a particular location for some political event. I think we've found that it's everywhere. This is just an isolated event, if you ask me, because we constantly, for instance, we go looking for an exercise machine on the internet to buy an exercise machine. And for the next week, every website we go to that has advertisements for exercise machines. And we only went to a couple of places looking for exercise machines, and their advertisements are everywhere. So come on, don't tell me that it was just they're looking for user data, and the algorithms that they use on the internet don't completely violate our privacy. Now, that's my take on that, and I'm sticking to it. As you can probably see, I've seen hiding her hair of any of it. But my point here is our privacy versus public, and security versus insecurity. We literally do not have privacy and security as we once knew it. And we didn't do anything to cause this to happen, except want to expand our knowledge and look for entertainment, which is the internet these days has the most of that and the best of that. And we can do what we want. Look at the Lamb Network. We're in our 8th year, going on 9, and we can do all we want to on the internet. But yet, like this morning, several things have happened to me for some reason. And but also, I suggest watching the segment that I put together from last Monday's Let Us Reason Together show. John Craig also said a lot about some of this, and I put together that segment. I'd also like to tie it to this because there's a lot there. Now, one of the things that I said on that segment that John was talking about was literally to put in false information. When you fill out your social media little accounts there, when you get started, there's absolutely nothing wrong with putting in false information. Absolutely. It's not a lie. You're just putting in social media. None of that stuff is really supposed to ever be seen by anybody but you and the social media you're putting the information into. Now, whatever you're involved now, you can go back and change all your information. Of course, like a credit card, that type of thing, things that do involve being background checked and stuff like that. Obviously, you have to put in the right information. But it is my suggestion that you don't just randomly put in your own stuff, randomly put in the other stuff. So that's kind of basically what I'm saying here. It really goes along with the HR 5 stuff that we've been talking about, because it all ties into our security and all the public things that are out there that we don't want to be involved in. So let's bring everybody back in and see what we got to say. John, what do you think, brother?
All right, so we had to unmute there. I was thinking about this story, and I've been thinking about it since I watched the movie The Great Hack, and about some of the things that came out even recently about it. And of course, we see The Great Hack is about how the Republicans had used it in the last election, and yet it was actually developed originally in the Obama administration, and how one of the key players, and I don't remember her name, was it Rebecca Mercer?
Yeah.
She came from Facebook, and she came from the Obama campaign, where she helped develop the ability to use social media in their campaign. And
in fact, they even mentioned that just in one line on The Great Hack. They said, well, Obama did it first, but then they focus.
Of course. So everything blew up with during the Mueller investigation, and it was kind of a footnote on the screen when it regards to the Mueller investigation. But there was an interesting, I don't know, hearing in Congress involving Dr. Robert Epstein, who, by the way, he's a college professor. And he's a Hillary supporter, but he's also very objective. And he was actually talking about how these algorithms are used and in order to shape our mindset. And those people that are kind of on the line and they're not quite fully decided how they use the algorithms, how they use this information to nudge people towards a particular persuasion in order to build votes for one party or the other. And Dr. Robert Epstein was talking about how Google and Facebook and these social medias, especially Google, was which is the number one search engine, which I don't recommend, but is number one search engine that's out there, and people put in information. Well, they give you the information they want you to know. And if you look at it, if you want to look for something positive for Trump, you're going to be looking at going down multiple pages before you find something positive. I mean, it's how they're shaping our mindset to shift people away from particular political persuasions and that type of thing. So I think it's very eye-opening. And I remember Sandi and I were talking about how it was several years ago. It was many years ago when we had gotten on Facebook. They used to have all these surveys, and they said, what are you? I don't know. If you were a car, what type of car would you be? Or if you were a animal, what type of animal would you be? And they had all these questions and stuff. And it was gathering information. It was about making something that was kind of fun and cutesy and that type of thing. But ultimately, it was about gathering information, who we are, so they could shape advertisement and send advertisement our direction. Now, since President Trump was elected, how are they using this information? They're using it now to censor people that do not agree with their political agenda. In fact, it was the head of Apple, I forget his name right now, but he was talking about how they feel like it's their social responsibility to put people into place to monitor what's being said, in order that if something is out there that they don't want people to hear or they don't believe is true, that they will censor that outlet or that voice. And of course, the number one voice that was censored was Alex Jones. And ultimately, there's been several hundred conservative voices that are in the media or the alternative media that have been silent since then, that if you use particular terms, they're going to cut you off. In fact, if you use the term of who this whistleblower is, and you say his name, Facebook will censor you and cut you out, or it'll be removed from your Facebook. So these are all different things of how these algorithms and AI, the artificial intelligence, is being used. Now they just use our voices. They recognize our voice. If Alex Jones's voice pops up on some of these social media, it automatically censors him. In fact, there was a particular time that on Facebook, that unless you said something negative about Alex Jones, it would not allow you to post it. So you had to say something negative, and then they would let you post the article or whatever it was. So this is the shaping, and they feel like they need to have gatekeepers versus allowing us to decide what we want to listen to, what we want to hear, what we want to read. They feel like they've got to put the gatekeepers into place, and train the AI in order to be a gatekeeper, in order to shape the thought of our culture. And it's all part of this great hack where they've taken our information and they're using it against it. Now they're using real time. And Dr. Robert Epstein was actually talking about how the biggest concern, it happened in the 2018 elections and now in the 2020 elections as they're 1 year away, how these algorithms can shape and push the elections away from Donald Trump just simply by how they manipulate the data. And
well, you got to understand, it's not just one side. It's not just the Republicans.
Yes,
has this information. I mean,
yes.
the Democrats have any same algorithms and stuff. They can do the same thing.
Yeah,
for their own good.
And he even said from his own calculations that the 2016 elections, with what Google did and these other social media, they were able to shift some 3 to 5% of the votes towards Hillary Clinton, and still President Trump won.
Yeah.
But it's an amazing number of people that were nudged in a certain direction based on how they took data and fed it to people, that
Sure.
knowing where their inclinations were, they could just maximize the stuff that they didn't want to hear and make that the mudslinging against the candidate that those social media platforms, moved away from the candidate they didn't want. So,
well, but not only do you have this algorithm, on the left side, you have all of the media, you have all of Hollywood, you have all of everything that's also given them that slant. Not only these little.
Yeah, it's true.
I mean, that other side
90
has.
I think they've said anywhere from 92 to 97% of all of the regular media is negative towards President Trump. So, I mean, these people that aren't even on social media, I mean, they've got the whole machine that's
geared towards that.
Yeah, that's spiking all the information against
well, let me just say,
Bible believers and stuff.
Real quickly, people that believe the media don't really do any research for themselves anyway. If they're going to believe what the media says, they're so involved with the whole rest of the world, they really don't care what the truth is. They're just out there just getting their information because, okay, you do the research for me and tell me what it is, because I really don't want to do the research. So they believe the media. Now, on the other hand, we do our research because we are involved and we do want to make the right decision, not based on somebody else's research, but our own research. And another thing in what you were saying, you can reason anything. I mean, whatever their reason for doing things, you can manipulate that reason into whatever your perspective is. Sandy.
I'm just up there with John, so I'm gonna pass the torch to Joe. By the way, before that though, millennials don't do research. Millennials believe what the media says, lock, stock, and barrel.
I knew there was something I liked about you, Sandy. I knew
But Brittany Kaiser was in this documentary.
Right,
she did a lot of information, and one of the things that came out was psychological warfare. She said that when she was being interviewed for everything that was going on in the issue, and I thought that was kind of interesting how she spouted that out. And AI's taken over, and we've got and Tova had mentioned it earlier in the chat room about 23andMe, how the DNA had been stolen or whatever. That's what they say. Well, I was reading this article real quick earlier and I couldn't find it. And now I found it. It says, after you spit into a tube for a DNA test like 23andMe, experts say you shouldn't assume your data will stay private forever. Now they've been collecting our DNA with these 23andMe situations and stuff. And what's interesting is I like to watch the Marvel Comics shows. And a lot of these shows seem to bring forth things that are going to happen in the future. Like you see in Star Trek, the flip phones, the iPads, and all this stuff. Well, there was an episode on Arrow that was really interesting to me with this topic of hacking and everything, where this girl was making an algorithm to find everybody's DNA that's out there. That if their DNA had touched a doorknob or something electronic, that, hey, we know where they're at.
Interesting.
And I thought, isn't that interesting? Because I just finished watching the documentary, The Hack, and then watched this show. And here we have this article that I had read that I'll share it in the chat room as well, the website here in a minute, but about our DNA being collected. And it says it may be getting easier to link your private and anonymized DNA data to your identity. So here they are. They're going to collect our DNA. Like, for example, in my family's DNA, we have retinitis pigmentosus. So here they're going to have that. Okay, this means these people, they can have an issue where they could be blind. Do we really want this in our society? We need to collect that information and bring it forth. They've been collecting DNA on us way before 23andMe, guys. They've been doing it way before. Even eye specialists, when I would go to the eye specialist, they would want my blood, which, by the way, the Father prevented that. Thank you, Father. To test it, because they were trying to test the DNA to see if they can fix the DNA strand of these eye diseases that are out there, like retinitis pigmentosa, macular degeneration. And this was the excuse to collect your DNA, and we didn't even realize it.
You can reason out anything. You can reason anything you want and make it for you.
Exactly. And people take it wholeheartedly. And today, there's still those algorithms and questionnaires on Facebook. Find out what color person you are. Find out what type of personality you have. And people are like, hey, let's find out. I want to know. Why do you need to know? Especially if you're a believer, God the Father made you who you are. And we just talked about it earlier, Sandy. Let's look back and see the things that we have done in our past to bring us to what we are and who we are today. Those blessings and the things to have us grow, instead of looking at what some algorithm's going to tell us, some computer's going to tell us. AI is just taking control. And just, if you're going to Google, here's a new Google thing out there. Google's taken over everything, but there's a new app out there. It's called DuckDuckGo app. And that app, as soon as you finish doing your search, you take and it's got a little fire flame. It completely removes it. And it's better than Google, because Google tracks you. The other thing that tracks you, your iPhone. It listens to you. It takes pictures of where you go if you're using it for internet use. It takes pictures. I have seen it take pictures of my phone. I have seen this thing turn on. This thing tracks you. It listens to you. A friend of mine, Cheryl, you guys, my little friend Cheryl, her and her daughter decided to do an experiment. They put their phones way on the other side of the house and they talked. And this thing still heard what they were talking about. The next thing you know, their whole Facebook was full of birdhouses. That's what the topic was about. Birdhouses. So everything birdhouse, how to build a birdhouse, where to buy a birdhouse, how to paint a birdhouse, everything that had to do with birdhouses. So it's
not going away.
No, it's not. It's getting more and more. It's more and more, and we need to be careful what we say, how we say it. And in fact, my mom, the other day, we were on the phone. She goes, you know what? We need to be careful how we talk even on our phones, because they are listening to our phones and they're taking that information. They're putting it into a computer system. And, this is all sci-fi stuff back in the 1980s and 70s.
It really is. You're right.
And it's becoming reality. I mean, even the cartoon George Jetson stuff is becoming reality.
Real quick, you said something about the phone. When you're talking about the phone, I want you guys to know that every picture you take takes a picture from the other side every time you do it.
Oh, really?
Well,
yes.
People go into the bathroom with these.
I didn't know.
You go take a shower and you're going to the bathroom. Hello, people. It's a camera.
Water closet.
Camera.
Hey, Joe, we say water closet on here, not bathroom. Water closet.
It was a big deal when, like, Trump's son-in-law, he went and took a picture of something and it took a picture of his face. So it proves something. But every time, folks, you take a picture, it's taking a picture from the opposite side. You don't get it. They get it. So every time.
Serious. That's the first I've ever heard that.
Yep.
It's warfare because think about it. We've got these drones now. The soldiers aren't going into planes anymore and things. They're going and they're playing almost like a video game in a drone. And the drone is coming in. They're now trying to make drones to deliver your packages and your groceries now.
Mhm.
You know, they know if you have one of those apps like a Kroger app or a Safeway app, whatever grocery store you guys have, and you have that app and you put your grocery list, they now know what foods you're buying.
Yeah.
And your credit card, hey, they got that chip in there.
Right.
Now they have a chip in your credit
Yeah,
card.
I love that chip. Well, that's cool, man. Just put that sucker right up in there. Done deal. That's a whole lot less work putting it up in there than swiping it down. Man, I love that chip.
Last night, guys, my son-in-law just bought a car, okay? He just bought a brand new 2019 Honda Civic. This thing is freaky. I'm not kidding. I kind of joked and told him and said, move over, dude. I can drive this car now. Did
you call it Kit? When you got in it, did you say, hey, Kit, what's up?
Yeah, sure. No, I said Johnny Cab.
Okay, there you go.
He was sitting in his seat and he says, I got to show you something really cool. He took his feet off the pedals and we're driving along. And all of a sudden the car in front of him stopped and it slowed down and stopped, came to a complete stop. And he goes, I didn't touch the brake at all. He didn't touch the brake at all.
Right.
This car drives on its own now. And I'm just sitting there thinking of Minority Report, the movie Minority Report, where Tom Cruise gets in the car and he's trying to escape and they lock the whole thing in. And I'm going, oh, great. Does this thing open? You know?
We have our Lexus in the shop, the Toyota shop, being serviced right now. So they gave us a 2019 Corolla. It does exactly the same thing. It even dims the headlights or makes the headlights big. It does all of those things. And
you have that what TV screen?
Yeah,
you've got that camera. I mean, my son-in-law is a trooper. Okay, so he's showing me all these things. He says this is what's been in police trooper vehicles for many years now, and he says this camera up here, it is now a camera in the rear view mirror. There's a camera, so if something happens like an accident or something. It goes right to the internet so that your insurance company can get the information right away. And I'm like, they're watching us. We're talking about things and they're watching us in this car as well. So you can't even get in your car today if you have a newer car like a 2019 or early, later, and drive around with any privacy. There is no privacy. Privacy does not exist. We've lost. People say freedom in this country, Mark. Yeah. Our freedom, we sold our freedom to technology.
That's true. Very, very well put. I remember when cruise control came out and you could buy this little thing and hook it up to your column and hook it up, but they could do it in the service department and you could have cruise control. Man, I got one as soon as I could possibly get one. I thought that was the coolest thing. Now it's in every car. It's literally in every car. And all of these things will be in even the cheapest car that you can buy. Those things, all the tracking devices, all the different stuff will be in every car, and you can't unhook it because it's part of that computer control.
In California, my brother in California is telling me he has an old 1996 Chevy. And he says they're telling me that I have to go and buy and turn it in and get a newer vehicle because of the global, warming issue or climate issue, whatever they're calling it today in California. They are really, really starting to AI California big time.
I don't know.
You have those ID cards that are coming out in 2020. You've heard about those, right? To travel the United States.
Oh yeah,
got those now coming out. So you got to have all that information. So again,
we can go on and on and on.
It all started before even this.
It did. It did. It did. And we need to remember that. Mark, I'm going to let you wrap it up.
And that is the wrap up. I mean, it's just there's no stopping it. That's my final say, is there's no stopping it, and it is involved in every person's life, well, even if you have internet or not, it's involved in your life. So, I mean, I've talked to people that say, well, I don't have internet, I don't have all that kind of stuff, so it's not involving me. That's not true at all.
Not true.
Not true at all. Every person, all the soon it'll be 10 billion people on this planet. I heard the other day.
Well, not if the powers that be have their way.
I'm with you. Okay. Well, that's it.
Refrigerators and stuff. Be careful with those too.
I don't want a refrigerator that knows what I need. I don't want that. I don't want a car that drives it. I don't want that. But it's still out there. So
it doesn't make any difference. You can't stop it.
Yeah.
So why not just embrace it? That's what I have to say. You can't stop it, so embrace it. Get the refrigerator that knows what you get. The car that has all the bells and whistles, and then say, I have no hide nor hair of anything that's going on.
Yeah.
Or smart toilets that.
Smart toilets.
Oh, that was in Japan.
The smart toilets. They're scanning your output to see if you have a deficit.
Yeah.
Seriously?
They're developing them, yes.
No way. I refuse to believe that.
Okay, Mark, you want to embrace it all? Go get yourself a toilet.
Will it give me something so I can play solitaire while I'm on the while I'm in the water closet?
What was that movie on the cloning, Sandy, that we
Replicas?
No, the one that was way back. And they cloned for the organs. And the guy wakes up.
Island.
Yeah, the island. And he uses the bathroom in the morning. He says, you got too much sodium. And immediately when he goes to the cafeteria, no bacon for you.
Yeah.
Wow. Well,
yeah. It's amazing what Hollywood is showing us, and it's happening. And we're just like, oh, it's just a movie. It's just a movie, man.
Look what Desiree says. Oh, my John. Good one, Desiree. That's a good one.
The things we talk about on this show.
Yeah. But that's my final thing is, hey, ain't nobody going to stop it. We're on a full trained locomotive train ride that just has no brake on it. That's all there is to it. And that's what's going on. You can't stop it. So just embrace it.
An EMP.
No, I will fight it all the way. So, oh well. Hey, everybody, we want to thank you for joining us today. Hey, do some research on your own on The Great Hack. Get informed. Go watch the show. And, you just trust and pray and what you're supposed to do. That's all I can say. But, we will not be here next week for Thanksgiving. I told everybody to go be with their families. And so we will see you in 2 weeks this hour. And you want to be a part of that show. Hey, you know what? Go back on Thanksgiving. Just go back. If you haven't heard all the shows, go back and listen to them all. Go back. Yeah, they're archived. They're there. Go to the Messianic Lamb Network YouTube page and check everything out, everything that you missed. Anyway, thank you so much for joining us today. We can't wait to be with you again soon. Thank you, Joe. Thank you, John. Thank you, Mark. And until next time, we say shalom.
Shalom.
We'll be dancing in the streets, dancing at his feet, dancing in the streets of gold. We'll be dancing in the streets, dancing at his feet, dancing in the New Jerusalem. And we will sing Kadosh, Kadosh to the Lord of hosts, joining in the angels' choir, and forever we will be.
We are richly blessed to bring you what we believe is the fullest, most diverse, yet up-to-date progressive teachings, discussion, and prayer programming you can find anywhere on this planet. Be sure to take the tour of the MessianicLambRadio.com website. I'm Susan Hoogie, thanking you for joining us on the Messianic Lamb Video Network.